You don't just walk into a room, you scan it. Before you even take off your coat, your mind has already processed 1,000 invisible data points. You notice the slight shift in someone's tone. You see the heavy sigh that everyone else ignored. You feel the unspoken tension hovering over the dining table, and instinctively, without even realizing you are doing it, you begin to calculate how to diffuse it. You are not just in the room, you are the thermostat. You constantly read the temperature of everyone's mood and adjust yourself to keep the room from catching fire, and it requires a staggering amount of energy. This level of awareness is like an overhead light in your mind that never, ever turns off. It illuminates everything, every potential conflict, every unsaid word, every slight change in the facial expressions of the people you love. While others get to comfortably exist in the dark, resting their minds, you are forced to see every piece of dust in the room. You are always awake. You are always on duty. To the outside world, you are a masterpiece of functionality. You hold down a job, you pay your bills, and you take care of others. You are often seen by society as the strong one, the therapist friend, the overachiever, or the fiercely independent lone wolf. When people look at you, they see someone who has it all together. They do not look like they are struggling. You are the one people come to when their worlds are falling apart, because you always know exactly what to say. You always know exactly how to hold their weight. But here is the thing. Nobody knows how incredibly loud it is inside your head. You feel profoundly lonely, even in a crowded room or within a relationship, because nobody knows the real you. Only the curated, highly managed version you present to stay safe. You've spent so long blending into the colors of what other people need you to be that when you look in the mirror, you don't even know your own original color anymore. You spent your whole life managing other people's emotions so they wouldn't abandon you. It is exhausting, and it is incredibly lonely. Society loves to give this a name. They call you an overthinker. They tell you that you are too sensitive, or that you take things too personally. People who get to walk through life with their eyes half closed will look at your exhaustion and tell you to just let it go, or stop worrying, or look on the bright side. They treat your profound awareness as if it is a bad habit you can simply decide to break. But those labels are fundamentally wrong. And those pieces of advice are quietly devastating because they completely invalidate the reality of what you are carrying. I need you to hear this, and I need you to let it sink all the way down into your bones. You are not broken. You are not deeply flawed. You are simply exhausted. What society calls overthinking is actually a highly intelligent, hyper-vigilant protector. Your mind is a brilliant piece of machinery that had to predict the unpredictable in childhood to stay safe. It is a brilliant adaptation. Your nervous system learned very early on that being caught off guard was dangerous. So it built an extraordinary radar system to make sure you would never be surprised by pain again. When people call you too emotional or too sensitive, what they fail to understand is that you are a profoundly empathetic individual who absorbs the emotional landscape of the room because you lack a protective psychological skin. You don't just observe pain, you internalize it. This is not a character defect. This is a survival mechanism. And it makes complete sense. It makes absolute sense that you are drained. You are running a supercomputer in your head 24 hours a day, processing not only your own life, but the emotional weather of everyone you come into contact with. You are holding the weight of the world, and then criticizing yourself for feeling heavy. I see how heavy that is. You don't need to try harder. You are already trying too hard. You don't need to be fixed because you were never broken in the first place. Your body and your mind are doing exactly what they were designed to do. They are trying to keep you safe. To understand why you are so utterly drained, we have to look under the hood. We have to look at your wiring. In psychology, we talk about a concept called nervous system dysregulation. When you grow up in an environment that is unpredictable, chaotic, or emotionally barren, your brain adapts. It shifts into survival mode. Your brain becomes an exquisite, highly tuned radar system, constantly scanning the environment for threats. This is what we call hypervigilance, and this is precisely why you cannot simply relax, meditate it away, or think positive when people casually suggest it. Your biology is literally screaming that you are in danger. Your amygdala, the ancient, emotional smoke detector in your brain, is stuck in the OM position. It doesn't always know the difference between a real physical threat and a slight passive-aggressive sigh from your partner across the dinner table. To your nervous system, an unreturned text or a micro shift in someone's facial expression is treated with the same physiological intensity as a matter of life and death. You locked the painful memories in the basement. but the ghost still lives in your nervous system, rattling the pipes every time someone gets too close or a situation feels uncertain. When that ghost rattles the pipes, your body initiates a brilliant, but incredibly taxing series of survival responses. Sometimes this survival energy manifests as the fawn response. Society calls you a people pleaser. They say you are weak or that you lack boundaries. But deep down, your nervous system is executing a brilliant, desperate calculation. If I make the threat, the other person, happy, they won't attack me. I will abandon myself to keep you around. You become the ultimate chameleon. You've spent so long blending into the colors of what other people need you to be that when you look in the mirror, you don't even know your own original color anymore. You absorb their anger, their sadness, their disappointment, and you metabolize it for them, just so the room stays quiet. Other times, your hyper-awareness looks like the fight response. But you aren't throwing punches. Instead, you become intensely defensive, perfectionistic, and hyper-independent. Why? Because your nervous system says, if I control everything and everyone, I won't get hurt. If you control the environment, you prevent the trauma of being caught off guard again. You become the architect of everything, constantly calculating variables, making sure no one ever has the power to pull the rug out from under you. But running this complex, high-level psychological software takes a monumental toll on your physical body. The cognitive load of maintaining this level of awareness requires massive amounts of neurological energy. Imagine driving a car with the parking brake fully engaged, while pressing the gas pedal all the way to the floor. The engine screams, the gears grind. Eventually, the system has to shut down to prevent a total collapse. This is the freeze response. This is the part of your life you hide from everyone. The days when you cannot drag yourself out of bed, the hours lost to mind-numbing doom scrolling, the chronic fatigue, the sudden urge to cancel plans, and isolating yourself entirely. Society, and often your own inner critic, labels this as lazy or unmotivated. But it is not laziness. It is a frozen, overwhelmed nervous system that is exhausted from carrying emotional weight. Your nervous system is so flooded by the sheer volume of data it is processing and by the energetic demands of others that it simply unplugs to conserve energy. Your nervous system says it's too much. Play dead to survive. This cycle, the hyper-vigilant scanning, the fawning to keep the peace, the controlling to prevent pain, and the inevitable frozen collapse, is not a sign that you are failing at life. It is not a toxic trait or a bad habit. It is a sign that your biological hardware is working exactly as it was programmed to. You are not anxious. You are a highly intelligent, exhausted protector. But to understand why your system is working so hard today, we have to look back at the environment that originally programmed it. We have to look at the little boy or the little girl who learned very early on that safety was never a guarantee. For many of you, your childhood wasn't necessarily a battlefield of explosive violence, though for some it might have been. Often the trauma of the highly aware adult comes from an environment of quiet chaos. It comes from emotional unpredictability. You grew up in a home where the adults were supposed to be the steady, unshakable ground beneath your feet, but instead, they were shifting tectonic plates. Maybe you had a parent who was emotionally volatile. One day they were warm and loving, and the next day they were cold, withdrawn, or entirely consumed by a sudden, inexplicable rage. Maybe you grew up in a house where love was highly conditional. It was a currency only given when you were quiet, when you were compliant, and when you were achieving. Or perhaps you had to become the adult far too soon, because the actual adults in the room were drowning. They were too consumed by their own pain, their own addictions, or their own unresolved trauma to truly see you. In that environment, you didn't have the luxury of just being a carefree child. You became the Atlas child. You had to step up and hold up the sky so that it wouldn't crush the people you love. You became the emotional shock absorber for your entire family. You learned how to read the heavy footsteps in the hallway. You learned how to translate the subtle shift in a mother's sigh or the tension in a father's jaw to know exactly what kind of night it was going to be. You learned whether it was safe to speak or if you needed to become completely invisible to survive the evening. Society looks at your hypervigilance today and slaps a clinical label on it. They call it an anxiety disorder. They call it a trauma response. But let's reframe that. Let's call it what it truly is. It was a brilliant, necessary strategy for a child trying to survive in an emotionally barren or chaotic ecosystem. Your brain looked around at the towering, unpredictable adults in your life and made a terrifying, subconscious calculation. My safety depends entirely on my ability to manage their moods. Your nervous system learned that if you could anticipate the storm, you could brace for impact. If you'd be perfect, you wouldn't trigger their anger. If you could be the ultimate caregiver, the one who never had any needs of their own, you wouldn't be abandoned. You sacrificed your own authentic self to become whatever the environment required you to be. It was a spectacular feat of psychological engineering. Your brain did exactly what it needed to do to keep you alive. You were just a child, trapped in a situation you could not control, and you used the only tool you had available, your profound, piercing awareness. But my God, it must have been so incredibly lonely. To be the one who understands everyone but has absolutely no one who understands you. To be the one holding up the entire sky while everyone praises your incredible strength and your stoic independence, but no one ever stops to ask how your shoulders are doing. You deserved a safe harbor. You deserved to be protected, but instead, you had to become the lighthouse for everyone else's storms. And because that survival mechanism worked, because it kept you safe when you were small and vulnerable, you took that brilliantly wired software with you into adulthood. You carried it into your friendships, your workplaces, and your romantic relationships. Because when a system keeps you alive, you don't just turn it off, you trust it. Even when it is heavy, even when it starts to destroy you from the inside out, you are still operating like that little child in the dark, constantly calculating the danger, bracing for the emotional abandonment that historically always came. But here is the gentle truth you need to hear tonight. You do not have to tear down the wall right now. We do not tear down a fortress until we fully understand and deeply honor why it was built in the first place. Your hyper-independence, your profound awareness, and your desperate need to please. They saved you. They were brilliant, life-saving strategies for a vulnerable child in a chaotic environment. So, before you try to change anything, before you criticize yourself one more time for being too much or too anxious, I want you to just take a quiet breath. And I want you to quietly thank your nervous system for doing its job. Thank it for keeping you alive in the dark. But I also want you to look around you right now. Look at the life you have built. You are an adult now. You have choices, boundaries, and a physical power that you simply did not have when you were small. The war is over. You are surviving a threat that is no longer in the room. The heavy armor you built to survive the battlefield of your childhood is now weighing you down in peacetime. You are running an outdated survival software in an environment that is finally safe. Healing from this is not about fixing yourself overnight. You cannot simply turn off an awareness that has kept you alive for decades. Healing is slow, and honestly, letting go of control is terrifying. Healing is simply the profound realization that you do not have to be the thermostat anymore. When you feel that familiar rush of hypervigilance, that desperate, automatic urge to scan the room and adjust yourself to make everyone else comfortable, I want you to just pause. You don't even have to stop the behavior right away. Just become aware of it. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Remind your body, I am safe here. I am an adult. I do not have to carry their emotional weather. You don't have to tear down the whole fortress today. But maybe, just for today, you can leave the gate unlocked for the right person. Maybe you can allow yourself to be a little less perfect, a little less accommodating, and a little more authentic. You can slowly lower the drawbridge. You can choose to unravel, to let the tension leave your shoulders, and to simply soften, because you have carried the weight of the entire sky for long enough. It is okay to let someone else hold you now. You can put it down. If this resonated, you're not alone here. Consider subscribing and share your story in the comments. Thank you for watching.